At the executive level, decisions propagate through systems you cannot fully see and cannot directly control. The skills required are therefore not extensions of the management skills. They are adaptations to incomplete information, delayed feedback, and second-order effects. Many executives discover this only after a painful experience. My goal is to let you discover it before. Welcome to the C-Suite. Let's go.
Welcome to the Vardan Ter-Antonyan Show. We're sitting down with authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, executives, and industry leaders to talk about business, leadership, and strategy. In a world where competition is ruthless, information is power, and decisions move markets. This is where leaders learn how to win. Let's get into it.
In the second episode of the show, I want to talk about the executive layer of the company, the C-suite. For most of their professional lives, aspiring executives are trained implicitly and explicitly to believe that success follows a recognizable logic. Perform well, solve problems, build capable teams, earn trust, and over time, scope widens, responsibilities increase, and authority follows. Promotions feel earned, and the system appears rational. This belief is not naive because it's reinforced repeatedly by experience. This pattern holds long enough and consistently enough to get internalized as truth. Then comes the C-suite. For many first-time C-suite executives, the transition is not simply challenging, but it's very disorienting. The rules they have relied on previously no longer seem to apply, and the behavior that used to generate success now generates friction. Results no longer speak for themselves. Authority feels conditional, and accountability arrives quickly, while power does not. What looks like a personal failure is usually something else entirely. The C-suite is not a meritocracy. It never was. Below the executive level, organizations behave like ladders. You climb the ladder to supervisor, to manager, senior manager, director, senior director, vice president, senior VP. And the mistake is thinking that once you get to senior VP or whatever, going up to the C-suite follows the same progression. It does not. So at that level, the ladder ends and something completely different appears. Below the C-suite, the leaders are rewarded primarily based on their execution. Above it, the leaders are evaluated on how their decisions interact with the organization as a whole. At this level, performance is not only evaluated by the execution, but also by the unintended risks, narrative coherence, and political stability. This shift is rarely explained. Most executives discover it only after they arrive. Merit does not disappear at the top. It's just redefined. It's about how well an executive fits the organization's needs at a specific time. Boards and CEOs evaluate executives along dimensions that are not written down or standardized or evenly applied. The questions they ask are, does this executive reduce uncertainty or increase it? Does this executive protect the enterprise from risk? Does this executive reinforce or destabilize the dominant narrative? Does this executive preserve optionality for future decisions? An executive could be correct and still fail these tests, which is why merit is unreliable at the top. It's not that standards disappear completely. They just become contextual, interpretive, and political. Many aspiring CXOs believe that decision-making becomes more rational as they climb to the top. But in fact, complete opposite is true. As stakes increase, ambiguity increases, information becomes incomplete, outcomes are delayed, Accountability diffuses across people and time, and decisions must be made without the clarity executives were accustomed to prior in their career. Boards and CEOs rarely ask if the executive was right. Instead, they ask if that executive is safe for investors, for employees, and for the narratives that the company is trying to maintain. Safety in this context is related to the confidence that the executive will not destabilize the organization, force premature decisions, or create risks that cannot be easily contained. Every leadership team operates within some kind of a story. A CEO has a narrative, board has its own narrative, and investors have their own narratives. And so the key is to operate within all of those narratives, and just for all of them to coexist. Okay. So if you're a CXO and you are, pushing your own narrative or going against a dominant narrative in a company, that's not good for you. So what you will most likely encounter is a lot of pushback, and you don't want that. You want to avoid that at all costs, at all costs. So, because the dominant narrative sort of protects the coherence, protects the company, and so on and so forth. So some CXO roles are actually designed to um, take all the risk, and some are designed to, you know, um, excite, and some are designed to protect. And so, sometimes when you see an organization basically having a lot of issues, whether it's cultural issue or anything like that, and all of a sudden they hire an executive to take care of that issue. So most of the time it happens when the issue is actually very, very difficult. And so they hire an executive to tackle the issue, um, knowing that this issue is probably not going to get tackled. And if it's not, then they will get rid of that CXO, and the system comes back to stability, so to speak. They look for a new CXO that would tackle the issue. So, as a new or aspiring CXO, whether it's CEO, COO, and so on and so forth, you think that you're hired to sort of fix all these issues and stuff like that. Make things better. But then you discover when it's already too late, you discover that you weren't hired to solve the issues. You were hired to contain the risk, not eliminate it. But because you can't really eliminate the risk, but you can contain it, so to speak. So that's what you're hired to do. And a common misconception is to say that, oh, I was betrayed, but that's not betrayal. That's design. Ironically, the CXOs who are most likely to fail in the C-suite are actually the highest performers below the C-suite. And that's because high performers are actually conditioned throughout their career to believe that, so clarity, rigor, and truth ultimately win. But in a C-suite position, you are constantly operating under incomplete information and huge uncertainty. Whether it's uncertainty on the market or uncertainty within the company, and you don't know, and that's another uncertainty. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen out there, and so every day you have to be ready to face the uncertainty, make decisions, hopefully data-driven decisions, to tackle the uncertainty that you're going to face that day. And so if you're not expecting that, if you're expecting clarity, forget about it. That is not going to happen. Boards are actually often portrayed as engine of strategy and transformation and innovation and so on and so forth. But actually, in reality, what boards are engines of stability. So, you know, they're they're rewarded for stabilizing the company. And so, this creates a natural bias towards C-suite or CXOs that are always, trying to make the system stable, make the company stable, no matter what it takes. Okay, so um, sometimes innovation requires investing in R&D, right? But at the same time, that requires spending money. And so a CXO, a lot of the time, CXO is who saves the money is sort of valued more than the CXO who spends money. Many aspiring CXOs truly believe that if they just, complete this one more project, deliver one more success, they're so close, they will actually get into the C-suite, right? And when it comes to that, yes, they deliver that. They perform excellently. They do an amazing job, and they realize that they're kind of stalled. The progress stalls right there, right at that cusp, right at that edge, right of the C-suite. The reasons for that are, for example, they solve company problems faster than the organization can absorb that change, right? If you're trying to bring about a change faster than the organization is ready for it, that's not a good thing. So it is viewed as destabilizing, right? So you have to watch out for that because you're threatening the internal power structures without even realizing. They might also, lack some kind of an internal sponsor who would be willing to absorb the risk of promoting you. Because if it doesn't work out, that's not good for them. Perhaps the hardest adjustment for the aspiring CXOs is realizing that the C-suite is not designed to be fair at all. It is designed for survival. Fairness usually implies consistency and transparency and actual, proportional reward for your good work. Whereas survival prioritizes flexibility, discretion, and risk management. Those goals are not compatible at all. Executives who cling to fairness actually end up being extremely frustrated, burned out, and broken down. And some executives actually abandon fairness completely. Now, those become cynical. That's not good either. The best is somewhere in between. Now, if the C-suite is not a meritocracy, not based on merit, and not fair, what should the CXOs or aspiring CXOs optimize for? Okay. It's not politics, not so much, not optics, not cynicism, but they need to optimize for situational intelligence. That means understanding what problems is leadership really trying to solve? Who defines success and who enforces consequences? Where does the authority truly reside? What risks is the current position designed to absorb? Executives who ask these questions early make better decisions when it comes to their own careers. And so they don't enter roles that mostly absorb risk, and they enter roles that are more reasonable. This was the end of episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. In the episode 3, we will be discussing the power, the accountability, and illusion of authority in the C-suite. Until next time.